Hi guys, welcome back to ToK Today. I'm Daniel, and today we're looking at the exhibition prompt, are some types of knowledge more useful than other types of knowledge? So, before we get into that, let me just point you in the direction of the May 2022 ToK subject report. All right, if you want to get high marks in your ToK exhibition, then I really recommend checking this out. The subject report tells you that the most important factor in the ToK exhibition is specificity. A word I have trouble saying, specificity. Specificity of the object and specificity of the object to the prompt and the knowledge argument or knowledge claim. And it's because of this subject report that I recommend working out your 3 knowledge arguments before you pick your object and write your exhibition. So work out 3 knowledge arguments which come from the prompt. Each knowledge argument can then be related to an object which demonstrates that knowledge argument, and then that helps you to come up with specific knowledge discussions, which will give you a high mark in the exhibition. The full commentary for today's exhibition, that's the written commentary, can be found at toktoday.com. I'll put the link in the video description. And there's lots of other ToK commentaries that you can find on the site. Well, a few exhibition commentaries. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into this. Are some types of knowledge more useful than others? When I'm looking at this prompt, I'm thinking, can I bring in some ToK type concepts like reliability, accuracy, truth, interpretation, and evidence? And I'm looking at that word useful, and I'm thinking, useful to whom and for what purpose and in what context? As I already said, you need to be coming up with your 3 knowledge arguments before you come up with your objects. It just makes things a lot easier later on in the exhibition. And here are my 3 knowledge arguments. Knowledge argument 1, contextually specific knowledge is more useful than contextually general knowledge. Knowledge argument 2, falsified knowledge, that is sort of wrong answers, in shorthand, can be more useful. And knowledge argument 3, all knowledge can be of equal use. It's the interpretation that matters. These are just examples of knowledge arguments. You can come up with your own. From those knowledge arguments, I then identified some objects, and object 1 I identified was my copy of the book Walkabout by James Vance Marshall that I read during year 7 or grade 6 at school when I was 11 years old. And this demonstrates knowledge argument 1 about the role of context in determining the use of knowledge. We then have to link the real-world context of object 1 to the prompt. Well, in this book, an Indigenous Australian boy saves the lives of 2 non-Indigenous Australians by using Indigenous knowledge. When I read this at 11 years old, it was the first time that I realised that the usefulness of knowledge is contextual. I then have to link that object to the knowledge argument. So I'm going to say that Walkabout shows that knowledge can be highly contextual in both meaning and application, and that the context can give knowledge a function. Out of context, the same knowledge can lack function and meaning. And this is a sort of functionalist approach to knowledge which could suggest a mutually inclusive relationship between the production and the application of knowledge. I'm arguing that context is primary in determining the type of knowledge which is useful. I'm now going to justify the inclusion of object 1 in the exhibition. And I will say that object 1 demonstrates the contextual usefulness of knowledge by contrasting Indigenous knowledge with non-Indigenous knowledge. And this is highly effective for young learners who are yet to uncouple personal experience from the experiences of others. Quickly moving on to Object 2. Object 2 is the dominoes set that I used to play with my grandfather when I was a child. And remember that knowledge argument 2 is that falsified knowledge, that is wrong answers, can be more useful than confirmatory knowledge. I'm going to link the real-world context of Object 2 to the prompt. So as a child playing dominoes with my grandfather, I didn't understand why he would usually win. And then I realised that he was remembering which dominoes I wasn't able to match, and therefore he was ascertaining which dominoes I did or didn't have in my hidden hand. And this was the first time that I realised that definite false knowledge was more helpful to gain specific knowledge than positive confirmatory knowledge is, when a range of answers are possible. Now I've got to link this domino set to the knowledge argument, to knowledge argument 2, and I'm going to say that the usefulness of knowledge may depend on the purpose of the knowledge and the method of knowledge production or acquisition being used. Seeking confirmed negatives in dominoes is similar to testing the null hypothesis in the scientific method. And the scientific method is based on deductive reasoning, which requires the development of specific knowledge from a set of general observations. This is easier to do if we know which observations may be wrong, and therefore false knowledge may be more useful than confirmed knowledge. I'm now going to justify the inclusion of Object 2. And I'm going to say that the usefulness of knowledge may depend on the breadth of the range of possible answers. Eliminating possibilities increases the probability of finding correct answers. And this is particularly shown with dominoes. The scientific method is based on this form of deductive reasoning, and it leads to knowledge with a very high level of reliability. And this is easily demonstrated to a child when they're playing dominoes. And then finally, we come to Object 3. My Object 3 is Fleming's Petri dish of the penicillium mold that he found growing in his Petri dish in 1935. And this, of course, links to the knowledge argument that all knowledge can be of equal use, and it's the interpretation of knowledge that matters, not the type of knowledge. And I have to link the real-world context of Object 3 to the prompt. So I'm going to say that Fleming realised that the mould growing in the Petri dish was killing the bacteria that he intended to grow in the dish. And from that realisation, we have the development of the medicine penicillin, which has been widely used to treat hundreds of millions of people over the last 80 years. As such, penicillin constitutes a useful type of knowledge. So what's this got to do with the knowledge argument, linking the object to the knowledge argument? Well, we're saying here that Fleming realised that the mould, which was growing in his dish, could be medically useful. The mould is usually thought of as a worthless byproduct, but Fleming reinterpreted that knowledge to show that it could be useful. Therefore, it's not the type of knowledge that determines the usefulness of knowledge, but the interpretation of the knower that's important in making the knowledge useful. And finally, we justify the inclusion of the penicillium mode in this ToK exhibition. And I'm going to say that when I learned about this, I realised that knowledge is defined by its interpretation and its meaning. Both interpretation and meaning are dynamic, relative, and contingent. Penicillin is a strong example of how knowledge, which is thought to be useless, can be reinterpreted as being useful. And then my three objects. My ToK exhibition comes in. Object 1 is 325 words, Object 2 is 313 words, and Object 3 is 324 words. So that makes about 957 words, something like that. So I've got to get rid of about 3 words. If you found today's commentary useful, then a like would be great. A subscribe would just be absolutely wonderful and fill my day with lightness. So please do give me a subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. Stay ToKtastic. Bye.